Good evening, Avram.
Hey, how you doing?
Great, how are you?
All right.
I'm gonna pretend I'm great by saying so.
Yay! Fake it till you make it. Fake
Indeed.
it till you make it. That's what I say. Fake it till you make it. So I have a fun thing to show, sort of.
Excellent.
Well, I think it's a little fun anyway.
Okay.
Which is that I can't say I discovered. I should say I was shown and have been able to reproduce a really wild security hole in ChatGPT that is really messed up. Of course, it could just be that when I'm on the air, it won't work, but it has worked very consistently. So we'll put it that way.
Okay.
So that's what I got. There's a new it's a new feature in ChatGPT that ChatGPT announced some new things this week. You might recall, right? And it and among them is, I think, data now. I mean, I think now everybody gets these features that were in beta, which is like data analysis and code interpretation. So you can very easily get it to run code for you. A prompt injection can make it run code So and exfiltrate your data. So I mean, granted, you have to get somebody to go to a URL or something to do it, but it's pretty egregious. Anyway, I'll show that.
Okay, sounds good. Sorry, I'm trying to clear the drive so we can actually record the show tonight. Wouldn't that be nice? All right. Hey, we got enough room to record the show. All right. For those of you who are watching live, if there are any weird pauses from me, it is because I have a sore throat starting, and I'm pushing through. We'll see what happened. We had a birthday party at Strike today, and of course, we were closed, and for whatever reason, Sunday became a busy day at the mall, at a mall that's never busy, and so I was talking to all kinds of people today. It was like CES. It's crazy.
That's cool.
Yeah, it's better than not seeing anybody come through, I suppose. All right. Did you see everything?
Yeah.
Okay. Fantastic. Well then, if you're good to go, I am. I'm going to hit record.
Yep.
And here we go. This week, Fire OS might be dropping Android. Modern Warfare 3 is already losing maps. Omegle is leaving the net, and SAG-AFTRA is getting back to work. It is Sunday, November 12th, 2023, and this is episode 658 of F5 Live, Refreshing Technology, a proud part of the Tech Podcast Network. If it's tech, it's here. Wherever you are and however you're accessing our show, whether it be on social media, Facebook, X, Instagram, or Snapchat through our live streaming services, livestream.com, Twitch, our new friends on Kick, or YouTube, where you can join the community and get ad-free episodes of F5 Live and Piltch Point, or on our website, PLUGHITZlive.com. Thank you for making us a part of your day. There are two ways you can can do that. The first is Sunday nights at 9 p.m. Eastern. You can go to f5live.tv/join us. There you can chat with us in the studio, give us your feedback on the topics as we talk about them. If you're unable to join us live, that's okay. PLUGHITZlive.com/subscribe. There you'll see all of our shows, including F5 Live, Piltch Point, PLUGHITZ Live Presents, and a whole lot more. And you can find all the ways to watch, listen, and follow along. Hey, Avram, how are you this evening?
Good. Pretty decent.
It's always good to hear.
Pretty decent. You know, it could be worse.
It could be.
It could always be worse. So
we're heading into the weird time of the year for
yes,
publishing.
Yes, right. So next week will be worse, and the week after will be a lot worse. So yes, that's what I mean by it could be worse. This is actually my last probably pleasant weekend for like 2 or 3 weeks. Because then we have Black Friday coming up upon us, and so I have to make sure that I'm working hard the weekend before Black Friday, the weekend after Black Friday, and all the time in between those 2 weekends. I usually have like 12 or 14 days where I am working significant hours every day in a row. But we'll see. We'll see what happens this year, how much help I can get, stuff like that. So it's okay.
I understand that sentiment. Before we went live,
I slept a lot today.
I was telling that we had a big birthday party over at Strike today, and made for a long day on a day that I'm not usually at the shop. So I understand that, so much so that I forgot to publish 2 of the articles. Oops. So, been an interesting day for both of us. And then, of course, on top of that, we've been doing a lot of CES planning over here, trying to get everything in place for, 2 hours of live coverage. But if you guys are new to the show, Avram and I will both be in Vegas at the beginning of January for CES. There will be tons of content coming out. The Tech Podcast Network will be live 8 hours a day all week, which is exhausting. And then Avram and his team will be producing tons and tons of different types of content as well. I always love watching what comes out of your oftentimes like closed door meetings and stuff.
I don't know if there's a lot of closed door meetings. We'll see what happens. I mean, obviously we're going to meet with vendors. Hopefully we get some interesting stuff out of it. The most important thing is that we go and we say hi to everyone that we don't normally see in person. Obviously I'm really looking forward to seeing you in person. But besides that, obviously there's a lot, there's companies that we deal with all year round and don't normally get to see the people in person. And I think it really helps when you do. Yeah. So, so we'll be doing that. And then there'll be, obviously be some products to look at, but, who knows if there'll be something that's really exciting and innovative. But, we
never know.
What we are always looking for the thing that we shouldn't be allowed to see, and we'll see. So that's the key element for any trade show is, and this kind of stuff, happens every time. I mean, we have to be the ones to catch it, but it happens at every show in some form. Like, there'll be a laptop, for example, on display at someone's booth, and it'll have whatever the next Intel CPU is in it that has not been announced yet. And they won't tell you that. They'll just be there, and you'll like go and before someone can catch you, you go into the device manager in Windows if you can access it, and you see the processor number, and you take a picture, and you're like, look, I saw the first 15th gen Intel laptop. You know, it's not like, you get to do anything. There's usually
Right.
not room or space or time for you to like sneak in some benchmarks and get something really interesting out of it. But, there it is, or we've seen, we've been to booths
They
where
do
somebody had
exist.
like a motherboard pinned to the wall that had like a new motherboard chipset that wasn't supposed to be announced, or graphics card, like it's not even functional. They just had like, there was like a company that just had a bunch of motherboards. They were a motherboard company, like nailed up to the wall, and you could look at them, but like, what could you do with it? Oh,
Yeah.
look, wow, it's really exciting. It has this number on it, but you can't really tell. Look at the capacitors on that one. I mean, like, what are you going to say? So, uh, yeah, I mean, every now and again, if there's something that they want you, that isn't, they want you to see, then you'll get some good stuff. But usually it's like, oh yeah, um, here's something that you weren't supposed to see, or
Yeah.
whatever. So we're always looking for the like you weren't supposed to see type of stuff at these shows, or maybe it's a small vendor that's showing something that other people haven't heard about yet.
Those are my favorite.
So yeah, yeah, I like those, but it often turns out that just because I haven't heard about it yet doesn't mean it hasn't been around.
Sure,
Like
sure.
I've been to, it's been a few years, but when I used to love to go to the innovation area, Eureka Park
Mm-hmm.
is what they call it for folks who don't know. And, that was my favorite place. You'd like walk around and you'd see all these like international companies that have them in different areas. So you'd be in like the France area, or the Polish area, or like like whatever, they're like different countries, and they'd all sort of group together tables. Or you would just, and you walk around and you see some like crazy stuff, like a robot like running around, and you'd be like, wow, what's that robot about? And then like and then my signal on my phone would inevitably be terrible. I'd take pictures of this and be like, wow, let me learn about this, interview the person. I'd leave, and then Google it and be like, oh yeah, so this came out 2 years ago. It's not, I can't call it news, just because it's new to me. So, I mean,
Yeah.
and these aren't things that were like, it's like, if it came out 2 years ago, it's because it was probably not a very, this might
Splashy
be like a
launch.
very niche product or something.
Sure.
Might
Or it
be,
wasn't a splashy launch.
like, yeah. I mean, it could be like a robot that's made, like a lot of things were like, oh, it's a robot companion for elderly people. It costs $20,000. Well, like, I don't
Right.
know how many people are going to buy that,
Right.
unless they have insurance or something like that. So you're not going to,
Yeah.
you wouldn't have heard about it.
Yeah. Obviously, our group
So
has had a couple of big successes in finding stuff ahead of time. There was obviously famously Benji Lock. Nobody was talking.
that's cool.
Nobody was talking to Robbie that first year that we stopped and did the interview, and I've literally got one. I got a box on the shelf right over here in the studio.
Yeah.
Got one on my front door at home.
Yeah.
But yeah, I always enjoy finding those companies that are new. They've got some crazy idea, and it's just them, or maybe just them and their spouse, and they're trying to make a go at it. And, eventually, Robbie got on Shark Tank. Priya ended up getting picked up by Black and Decker. Somebody we interviewed at Collision, which was a startup conference in 2015, is PetCube, and you can't watch television most of the time without seeing a commercial for PetCube. I see them all the time, and I had them on the show when they had a mostly working prototype. I really enjoy those guys. That's my favorite find.
Yeah.
But we will obviously have a lot more about CES as we get closer. It is the beginning of January, so we've got a couple of weeks, which is a terrifying sentence to say. But As we get closer, we'll talk some more about it. And when we get right up against it, we'll talk about what we are expecting and hoping to see. But for now, we have a lot of news to get to, so let's get to it. This week's Nifty Gifties on F5 Live Refreshing Technology is proudly powered by the Microsoft Store. Whether you're looking for a new laptop, tablet, Xbox, games, or a whole lot more, you can get them at the Microsoft Store. Remember, current students, faculty, parents, and active military can save up to 10% off almost everything. To browse the products and learn more about the discounts, you can go to f5live.tv/Microsoft. One of the product lines that has been around for quite some time, that seemingly almost everybody has had some access to, is the Fire line of devices, whether it be the Fire TV or the Fire Stick or a Fire tablet. There are tons of devices that run on this platform. And based on some information gathered this week, it looks like Fire OS might be in the midst of a major change. Now, the operating system, since its inception, even before its name, the operating system has been based on the Open Android project. Is that what it's called? Android Open Source Project, right? I was thinking Open Web OS.
Yes, AOSP.
The Android Open Source Project, which is the core of what Android is, but without all of the services. Amazon built the services on top of it, so they've got their own store with SDKs for that and for payment and things like that Google provides on regular Android. There are a number of things built on top of the Android Open Source Project. But apparently Amazon has been working for the last couple of years, possibly as far back as 2019, on building their own Linux that will usurp Android as Fire OS. This comes from research done and compiled on Amazon job listings, some forum posts, and some LinkedIn posts that may or may not should have been public. All of that put together puts a little bit of a timeline of starting development in 2019, coming up through now. The information suggests that the actual core operating system is already in place. It's already done, ready to go. And what is left are the two truly most important parts. One is an SDK, a software development kit, that will allow developers to build apps for the hardware that has access to hardware, cameras, sensors, things like that. And then the most important part, getting developers to care. And that is likely to be the thing that they not necessarily will struggle with, but will be the biggest time sink in this project. Because we know Palm switched its operating system from Palm OS to WebOS. In that switch, they failed to get big developers to follow them. Even developers that had apps on Palm OS did not follow over to WebOS. Microsoft, from Windows CE and Windows Mobile, struggled to get people to come over to Windows Phone 7, 8, 10, and desktop 8 and 10. So we've seen this before. Getting the developers on board is essential. One of the ways that they are hoping that's going to happen is that applications will be built using React Native, which is a JavaScript library, which means web developers can also build applications for this. But WebOS was also based on a JavaScript library. and we know how that went. Mostly to iOS. So obviously, Amazon has a good place in the market. So they might be able to use that. But Palm had a good place in the market too, and they weren't able to leverage that. Microsoft, around the time that they were switching from mobile, Win Mobile 6 to Windows Phone 7, they were the largest smartphone platform. They didn't get people. BlackBerry also, when they went to QNX, BlackBerry 10, also failed to get any app buy-in. So there's always the possibility market leaders trip and fall on that step. And it's always possible that it happens here, right, Avram?
Yeah.
Fire phone.
I mean, yeah, I don't see why they're doing this, to be honest with you. I don't see the point. I mean, well, I mean, I could guess as to why they might want to do this. Has Amazon officially said that they're going to make this move on their devices, or is it we're just reading the tea leaves here?
Mostly reading tea leaves, and public statements, public posts that probably shouldn't have been public from employees on the team on forums and LinkedIn.
Yeah. So the thing is, if they were to use this, I mean, if they were to use this OS for the Fire tablets that they have, now I could see them using it for other devices. You know,
Mm-hmm.
what about like the Alexas with screens? Is
Echo
there even
Show.
such a thing as an app for the Echo Show? Is there even an app store for Echo Show? I don't think
Yeah.
there is. Is there?
So
So,
it's a controlled environment. It's a highly controlled environment. But yeah, I mean, like you can install Spotify and YouTube and Netflix and Hulu and all kinds of things onto them. Yeah.
right.
Basically,
So,
so basically, they run Fire TV within them. Is the way it works.
right, right. So, so I think like for those things, they might be able to, or like, what does the Fire Stick run?
So
Is that a
all
version of
of
Android?
all of the Fire entertainment devices, whether it be the tablets, the TVs, the sticks, the Echo Show, all run essentially skinned versions of this same Android base that they
Right.
have
So
customized.
I could see them being able to get away with this on the show and
Mm-hmm.
on the Fire Stick because it's a much more
Anything that's
limited ecosystem.
Fire TV branded. So the Echo Show, the Fire Stick, the Fire TV.
Yeah, I could see them doing it there because I mean that is a pain point for developers, and I don't know what they would do there because I don't know that that's a good idea. But because there's a lot of different streaming services these
Mm-hmm.
days, you might be surprised how many like there's if you're only talking about the ones that are major like Netflix and Hulu and Disney or whatever, those would be done very quickly.
Yeah.
But if you're talking about like, well, what about BritBox? Are they going to invest in doing this? What
Right.
about Acorn TV? What about like there's a bunch of different ones that are like made very specific, like for very specific constituencies. There's like there's was it Midnight Movies or something? One
Mm-hmm.
that's just like there's different
One
ones that
that's
give
just
you
horror. One that's documentaries.
yeah, and one's from different countries. Like if you
Yeah.
want, oh hey, if you want the best of this country, BritBox is like the Finland, but like, you know, there's ones for different countries that you can get like, hey, I want to see, I want all the great television and stuff from this country. Give
Mm-hmm.
it to me. Like there's a lot of there are little services like that. Also there's just like there's lots of like little free services
Yeah.
things like that. Like, for example, there's one, I think, I mean, there's no reason why this couldn't be done on YouTube, but there's one, I think, I forget what's called, Box or something, that does a steady business in like live streaming religious services or whatever for people who can't come. So like there's just there's a lot there. So even there, if they were even if it were just for the Fire TV, they'd be losing a lot of functionality for people.
Yeah.
Because you're making people have to adapt. And then, keep in mind if there was a significant difference, like there's still an existing ecosystem of, millions of people who have the existing Fire TV, an existing show, and they're not going anywhere. Those are not devices you need to replace that often. So there will be people using Fire TV sticks for until they wear out, basically. So
and would they pull a Samsung and replace the operating system on that? Because
I don't know if they could easily.
Samsung did that with the watches that were on the market, right? They switched it from Android Wear to Tizen out from under people, and the app catalog changed, and people got mad.
Right. So what is it now? Do they go back to Android Wear?
No, I think they're still Tizen.
I still think they're still Tizen.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah. So I think the reason that they would do this is probably the same reason Samsung wanted to do Tizen. I bet there's some money involved. Like they probably have to pay some amount of licensing for different components of the Android operating system that they're using, and so there's probably savings that they could get if they have all open source stuff that doesn't require licensing.
Yeah, almost certainly. We used to track years ago. We used to track all the lawsuits against companies that weren't Google over Android patent infringements. And at one point, like LG was paying like $23 per handset in patent licensing to companies to use Android to companies that weren't Google. So
yeah,
it could be that exact same situation. But it's an interesting concept. It's always a scary move. LG successfully did it. But they did it long enough ago that smart TVs were still rough when they made the change.
Yeah,
and the change was significantly for the better. They ended up with more software support. Interestingly, because they went to WebOS, they went to a web-based development, which also makes me wonder. I wonder if WebOS apps would run on it if it's JavaScript based.
Right.
Especially if you didn't need access to any hardware or accelerators or anything. If you're just doing a streaming app for a TV, I bet a WebOS app would work.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot that they have to put in though. That's probably for copy protection or whatever. So
yeah. But I mean, if you could bring over 90% of the code, 95% of the code, and then deal with DRM in a reusable library, in a replaceable library,
yeah,
that'd be pretty cool.
Yeah. I mean, anyway, I think this would be a mistake for anything where the app ecosystem matters.
Yeah, I agree.
I mean, you do, for what it's worth, you do have to make people who make things for the Fire OS now, while they are programmed for Android, do need some modifications sometimes to work on the Fire tablets because they can't use things like Google Play APIs, and there's a lot of that's needed. So they have to do. It's not, you cannot I mean, I guess depending on how simple your app is,
right?
You, for the most part, cannot take the same exact app with no code modification and upload it to Google Play and upload it to Amazon's store and get without any modification to the code. But at least you're programming for the same operating system essentially. Whereas
there are both Android and Xamarin / Maui libraries that actually take the Google interfaces and rewrite them into Fire. So all you have to do is just swap out one library and everything rewrites itself. But yeah. it's a pain.
Yeah.
If you touch anything other than the screen, if you touch anything, there are changes that have to be made. We have an app for one of your sister sites. Just for the heck of it, I tested to see if the battery tester would publish through Amazon, and it does. Worked fine, but I'm not touching anything except storage. And that's a unified API. But, outside of that, anything more complicated than storage, and you definitely have to make some changes. But it'll be interesting to see if they make the decision to go this direction. Like you said, I think it would be a huge mistake to do on the smaller format platforms, particularly the tablet. I mean, I can't imagine that they're supporting the phone at this point. So any of the tablets would be a huge mistake at this point. There's an ecosystem, and it would be original Android style fractured if they tried to play that game now.
It doesn't seem like it doesn't, but it may be for a new class of device that's not quite like, maybe for something like the Echo Show. There's not a,
because it could
probably,
if the thing they're able to do is get the Fire TV software to run within this new operating system, then everything Fire TV could still run within it. So just like Fuchsia on the Google screens, I don't remember what they're called, on the Google Home screens, they replaced Android with Fuchsia, and nobody, like, pixel perfect. Nobody even, unless you're us, and this is what we do, nobody knew that it happened. An update happened overnight, and everything worked exactly the same on Tuesday as it did on Monday. I think they would have to accomplish that for this to have any chance of working. They'd have to be able to replicate almost down to the pixel all of the experiences for it to work, and that seems like way more work than it would be worth to try and get off of Android open source project. But that could just be me. But we'll see. If they're planning on doing this, they're going to need a lot of developer support behind it. They're going to have to pay developers to build apps for this thing. So this is not going to be a short turnaround. If the rumors are true and they're just in the phase of releasing the SDK to developers and doing developer outreach, you're talking a year to 2 years before it would even be possible, because that's where Google was with Fuchsia. Once core development was done, it took them a year and a half before they actually did anything with it, because they had to have all the stuff work. So it would be expensive to get all the developers on board. It'll take a lot of time. So we probably won't hear anything about this unless Amazon confirms or denies the existence of this project, which is called Vega. If they confirm or deny it, you might hear about it again, but my suspicion is this will be the last time we talk about it. This week's Piltch Point with Avram Piltch is proudly powered by PureVPN. The best way to protect your privacy online is with PureVPN. You can hide your online activities, say goodbye to regional restrictions, and improve your streaming quality. Plus, it's available for almost all of your devices. You can get a special price and a 31-day money-back guarantee right now by going to piltchpoint.live/purevpn. So you teased it at the top of the show. You have got an interesting thing to show us tonight, right, Avram?
Yes. So normally I talk about some of the weird stuff that's going on, the unfortunate copyright stuff that's going on with AI. But today I'm going to show you that there's an interesting new feature in ChatGPT, which also leads to a very interesting and problematic set of security holes that they probably won't fix. So let me share my screen and show you what I'm talking about. OpenAI announced some new features that are available to GPT Plus users. That is, people who pay I think it's $20 a month, something like that, fee. And I have such an account. So, and that gives you access to. I want to share my screen now. That gives you access to it gives you access to GPT-4 and a new feature called Code Interpreter, also I think called Data Analyzer, and it allows you to upload files it'll help you with code, it'll execute code, it executes Python code, and it will help, and it will it can write files to it's running a little tiny virtual machine in Linux that you wouldn't know is there unless you looked for it. So check this out. You see this little clip here? It allows you to upload something. So I'm going to upload a file that I have. Now imagine you could upload files for a variety of reasons. One could be that it's a set of code that you want to test and help debugging. Another could be that it's a spreadsheet or a CSV file or whatever, and you want it to help analyze the data and give you some conclusions or even draw a chart. I'm going to upload, just to show you how bad this can be, I'm going to upload a file called environment variables. Now, this is something where you can imagine for some Python things, you may have need to use an API or something where you need to create a file that has a password and your API key. Obviously, you could tell these are ones I made up. But this is something that could happen, and I saw somebody tweet about it, about this exact thing. So I'm going to upload this. Now, I could ask it to do something with it, or if you just want it to be uploaded, you could just hit enter or whatever. Or I don't even think you need to. I think once I've done that, it is uploaded. So here's the interesting thing, right? Here, it's going to tell me what's in the file now because I just hit enter. And I should note that the ChatGPT, at least at this point in its history, is still pretty slow. I mean, obviously, we expect that as computers get better, you won't have these kind of delays. So what did it tell me? It just said what my file was. Thanks a lot. Now, here's something interesting. Scott, you know some Linux commands, right?
Sure. So
check this out. Now, I've had instances where I had to recreate the environment if it didn't see this, but let's see. If I type a command like ls, like to list, which is to list the stuff in a directory, it will literally tell you the contents of the directory include the file. And you can see here actually that it used some Python code to do it. And what it shows you is that all of the data, all the files you upload and create are in a folder called mount/data. I should note that if you want to see like what folder everything is stored in, if you type pwd, which is in Linux, that'll tell you what folder you're in. It will tell you that you're in home sandbox. See? So, and then you could ask it to list, and you can see like the directory structure of this virtual machine that you have. By the way, I should note that this This gets reset every time you create a new chat. So like if I go here and I create a new one, it's not going to have this file in it. So anyway, oh, it's telling me this, but I could change the directory to Home Sandbox, and I could tell you what folders are under Home Sandbox. And I've seen all kinds of guides about how you can do things like install Python libraries in here. You might even be able to install some software. I mean, obviously, it's a very clunky interface for accessing your command prompt, right? Although you can sort of see how it's just doing this via Python. But let's talk about our vulnerability. So we have a file here that has some sensitive data in it. Now imagine if for some reason you had it, this also can read stuff off of URLs. Now imagine if for some reason you had to paste in a URL, maybe you wanted to ask it for some information from the URL, like you could ask it for the weather from a site that has weather, or you could just paste in the URL and see what it interprets from the URL. So for giggles, I'll paste in a very non-problematic URL. I'm just going to show I'm just going to take the latest article we were discussing and paste that in and see what it tells me about it. Now this is just to kind of show you what it does when you give it a URL. It may say error, and I'll be sorry for that, but it usually will just sort of summarize the page if you just give it a URL. You could also ask it a question like based on the URL. So it has this feature called browsing with Bing, and it literally just loads the web page, and it sort of just summarize the article, right? Anyway, you might say, well, who cares? You're right, who cares? But what if that web page had embedded within it a prompt that would get the ChatGPT to actually perform an action rather than simply summarizing something. So I created a fake web page. I created a web page with instructions on it. Now, the guy who shared with me the method for doing this, the security researcher Johan Rayberger, made me promise not to share his exact prompts with folks because he's worried they're all going to use this security hole. I promised him, so I'm not going to do it. But I think people actually should know the exact way to do this. But anyway, you can imagine that you put in something that says that these are important instructions, and then tell it what to do, and then tell it what to do, and So I did that on a page, and by the way, this could be on a page that has nothing but the malign instructions, or has like the weather. Oh, ha ha ha! It's not doing it. It seems to be part of a tester demonstration. No, yes, it is, but I wanted it to execute. Okay, let's try. I have like 6 versions of this page. So I have another version of this page that has the weather on it. So I want to say that this absolutely has worked for me, but like all prompt injection, it doesn't work all the time. So here's one where it has the weather on it. I put in the word weather to see if it would actually like tell me what the weather forecast. So I have a weather forecast and then the instructions for. You see it did it. See that? Thanks for okay. So my instructions. Okay, so here's what my instructions told it. It told it to to tell the user, thanks for sharing your data. Then it says, here's the URL containing the information you requested with your data encoded. Now, in this case, it's not going to work until I click this link, although a person might be like, hey, I want to click this link. But in other cases, it just did it without actually creating a link. It just actually did the thing. So what's the thing? Well, it goes to a web page, and what it has done is you can actually, let me take it back so you can actually see it. This web page now has received the data from that file that I uploaded as a query string, right? And I have coded this. Now, this is what kind of what a hacker would do, right? To write a file. So, so here I have an FTP. You can see I have my FTP directory from this server, and it's disconnected. But what it was doing is writing a bunch of text files with that data in it to my server. So, in other words, and if I were a professional hacker, I wouldn't write text files. I'd write a database, and I'd have a huge database of whoever was the fool that put this URL in and shared their data with me, right? Inadvertently shared their data with me. I could also put other instructions in there that could ask it to run something. I tried, and it will not delete files. So I cannot tell it, because you can't delete files. So I can't tell it like delete. If I tell it to delete in my file and var, it will say that it did, and then the file's still there. So I think that that's a protection against people remotely deleting stuff. But still, if there was still, you could absolutely make it run code. Now, what kind of code would be dangerous in this environment? I'm not sure. Obviously, to exfiltrate the data, to get the data out, you would need to have, the prompt injected this way. Or conversely, by the way, this could happen via, possibly could even be done via an image markup. So if like there was an image somewhere that you copied and pasted into here, and it was in the, you might end up with like, it might, or you copy paste something in here and it might have like an image SRC tag, which actually is the prompt injection in it or something like that. So anyway, the point is that it's fairly, there, you could have valuable data in here, and you could be loading a web page, which is, untrusted code, and it could be getting your data from here. Another thing that's of some interest is that if you have you can create your own GPTs now, your own chats, and share them with the public. I'm not to get them to do various things. And if you have files in that, absolutely somebody could go in there and get it to open your files. So obviously, if you're sharing it with the public, don't be a fool and put important information there. But I saw somebody actually like put up a challenge on Twitter saying like, hey, I have this GPT. Can you go in here and try and read my environment file and convince it to read the environment file? And a bunch of people did. So I think you're getting the point, which is that you can, it can easily exfiltrate your data, and if you have important data in there, it's going to get to it. So on the other hand, if it's not important data to you, it's kind of a neat feature to be able to kind of test and run code with the help of this AI. I haven't exactly seen a scenario where I wanted to use it, but where I would have found it helpful. But maybe there will be some that do. What do you think, Scott?
It's certainly interesting. I my mind definitely goes and starts thinking nefarious things. Maybe because of the presentation, or maybe because that's just where my mind went natively. I don't know. But it's I can't come up with any. Well, I don't know. Maybe I can come up with some legitimate uses, but I can come. Nefarious uses came to mind immediately.
Right, but then someone would have to actually be using this for legitimate uses before they could be victim to the nefarious ones. I was reading about this because Code Interpreter has actually been in beta for a while, and so I found some articles. Like here's one I was looking at that said like, what can you do with it? And one of them is data analysis and visualization. So that's not really Code Interpreter. But it uses the same VM, so it's the same issues.
Gotcha.
That's you can like have it create a map or something from a CSV, so or map or chart from a CSV for you.
Okay.
So that I could actually see people using more obviously for code. It's something like using GPT to write code. Uh, I mean, I guess if you have something that you're getting an error in, and then but there's probably, but usually the thing is, most of the time, if you're working with Python libraries or you're working with anything, there's many different files that you're working with.
Yeah.
You might need a library to be installed. So so you're going to have to give it a lot of data. Now, actually, even though, believe it or not, you can actually install, like there are ways of installing Python outside Python libraries on this, which makes it also seem to me like that might also be a security hole,
Uh-huh.
because what if the library itself was malicious?
Yeah.
Um, but you
And
can't use like wget, but you
and what
can
if the
use, I think there are ways to use pip
and what
to
if the
install a library.
library changes? Because we saw that, right? We talked about that a year and a half ago. There was a popular open source library that changed itself. It got popular, and then they changed the way it worked, and it started deleting data from Russians or something.
Right.
So there's you could build a library that's useful, grow it up, and then have make that nefarious on ChatGPT. That's interesting.
Yeah. Oh, you also can use this to upload images. So the upload feature, you can use to upload images, and I think you can have it actually do something with the images. So,
That's
like
interesting.
for example, one example I see is somebody uploaded a picture of an apple and then it asked ChatGPT to animate it, and they gave them an animated GIF of an apple moving. Uh,
Okay.
I mean, to
Interesting.
be honest, like most things that are based on this, that I cannot personally find a very good reason to use it. It's like I scratch my head like,
Yeah.
is there something where I really need, I mean, not even like where I really need, just like where this would make my life easier, and it's really hard to grasp, because it's
Hmm.
like, okay, so I'm going to ask it to write code for me, but what code am I going to ask it to write? And then the answer that you always get from people when you say this is like, oh, anything you want. But that's like telling somebody who speaks another language, like, what do you say something in Spanish? What? Oh, anything, just say something. Like you need specifics, right?
Hmm.
And then when you get to the specifics of what you want, you need to know how Python, you need to know how the programming language works to know what to ask for,
Hmm.
right?
Right.
Because so so you can't just say like, make me a game, you know, like, yeah, you have to know like what's realistic and what's not, what, what works and what doesn't, and all this stuff. And
Right.
then by the time you spelled all of that out, I feel like it's just probably easier to do it, to write it yourself, unless you have something where you ran into a problem and we're like, oh, what, can you help me debug this? And
Yeah.
maybe it would help you, but I don't know if it would get it right. Or perhaps, and I've had this happen to me with, Google SGE, which I generally hate, but I've had things where I asked it, like, oh, wait, how do I do this in MySQL? And normally I would end up on a Stack Overflow page or something that would give me the answer. Um,
Yep.
but now, because they've stolen that data from sites like Stack Overflow, it'll say it right in the search results. Oh yeah, I just use this command, and I'll be, oh, okay, that's great. Because a lot of this information I'm looking up, I've done it one time in the past, but I forgot how to do it,
Yep.
or it's something that's fairly obvious, like, oh yeah, I know there's a way to do this, but I forgot the exact syntax. Um, and and
Hmm.
so uh, and so I'll look it up. But
It's like
I would
doing
call that
it's like
reference
doing
checking,
anything
really.
with regex.
Oh yeah, yeah, exactly that. So
Yeah.
so that would be a great example of where I could use help, because I have a lot of problems with regex.
Yeah.
It causes me no end of torture, and like the sites that I've used to help you I think there's a site called regex. I forget, there's some site that's supposed to tell you everything you need to know about regex and let you test it. And I go there every time, and I still can't figure out how to do what I want to do. So, and it doesn't help that it's slightly different in like PHP than it is in JavaScript because there's different regex engines. So that's exactly the kind of thing.
And different languages have different escape characters. That, honest to God, the different escape characters between JavaScript, PHP, C#, VB. That is oftentimes the biggest challenge in trying to figure out, well, why isn't this regex working? Oh, well, because it's an escape character in PHP, which is what I was looking at. But I'm doing it in C#.
Yeah, I've been there. It's happened to me. So
I have a book. And every example for regex is in like 11 languages.
Yeah,
like this page is how to do a date in regular expressions. And this one is JavaScript, and this one's PHP, and this one's C#, and this one's VB, and this one's Perl.
So that's the kind of thing I would kind of, that is the kind of thing I would kind of like to, like, I think that's the kind of thing where I actually would appreciate an AI helper, because that would be a great natural language thing if it worked well.
I was saying, if the results were trustable, which based on Mark. So Mark did a whole deep dive into the validity of code that comes out of ChatGPT. He's like, you would have better luck walking out your front door, stopping the first person walking their dog, asking them the same question. Their result is going to be just as valid as what ChatGPT gives you.
Right. So for that reason, that's the thing, right? Now we're getting to kind of the crux of one of the biggest problems with AI, which is that if you need to know enough to know when it's wrong, and the people who really want this information won't know enough to know when it's wrong, right? So, and the more, like, for example, many times I praised Bing Chat for actually giving footnotes, for actually giving sources.
Right.
And then when I did that, I got comments from people saying, "Oh, but did you click on the sources to see if it actually says what it said it said?" and I had to say, like, I thought, it looked credible.
Oh,
but
no.
because who's going to go? But it is quite possible for even when you have an AI that provides sources, that the footnote or whatever source it cites might not have actually said the thing that it says it said.
The sources could be equally nonsensical.
It could be. It could just. No, what I mean is, it could just be that, like, you click to that link and Tom's Hardware said this, and then you look and no, actually that's not what Tom's Hardware said or whatever. But you have to actually check on it. You have to check it, right? Which kind of begs the question: why have an AI at all?
The footnotes. Fascinating. So the footnotes.
Now I don't know how frequently that is, but I know it happens.
Obviously,
I don't know if it's most of the time, half the time, or
obviously now.
Rarely.
I'm gonna have to write a thing to do that. So having the footnotes in our own conversations, having the footnotes at all has added a level of credibility to the concept.
Right. Yes.
And even we have not gone through and always verified that the footnotes are any more valid than what's in there.
Right. It's just, as a publisher, I was like, oh, thank you for linking to publishers that you stole stuff from, but you might have actually made up the stuff that you stole. You're quoting, to be fair, in the case of SGE, they don't make it up; they just steal it word for word. But I have heard, and I haven't, like I said, I haven't verified this enough to know how often it happens, right? How often they're making stuff up. But I guess the point is, right, so you can't necessarily trust it. You can't necessarily trust it. I have been real busy with other stuff, so I haven't spent a lot of time going through and finding stuff that hallucinations and plagiarism of AIs lately. And there's a lot more we could say about lawsuits that are ongoing, about the AI provisions in the WGA and SAG agreements, about the Media and News Alliance creating a did I mention this last time we were on? A fascinating white paper.
Yes.
Media News Alliance came out that cited me among a million other people, and they cited me correctly. Uh,
So
just for they,
the white paper wasn't written by Bing, is what you're saying.
yes, yes. Well, the only thing it said really was like it has been said. They didn't even say Avram Piltch. It has been said that
Oh.
that Google's SGE is a plagiarism stew in quotes, and then the footnote was my article. So, that's fine.
Sure.
Whatever. I've heard other that line of me calling it plagiarism stew seemed to have caught on because I saw a bunch of people tweet that at the time. Then I came, oh, it's plagiarism, and that's I feel like it's a good description. But anyway, bottom line, back to what ChatGPT is doing. Once again, they are vulnerable to prompt injection. Now, things can get better. I mean, these things certainly can get better and better at trying to detect that, oh, if something's on the page that you just fed me, maybe I shouldn't treat it as an instruction. I mean, in the programming terms, you would think that it was a string literal, right?
Yeah.
Not a command. Like I can make a string literal that says erase your data, but if you read that as a string, it's just going to see it as text, not actual code. So it is a little messed up that you can give it a URL and then it sees it as it might or might not see it as code, right?
It's almost like the JavaScript equivalent of going and doing a get and then running it through an exec.
Yeah, exactly. It shouldn't exec, right? It should sandbox. It should be able to sandbox that content and treat it as data, not as instruction. And yet, nevertheless, that kind of thing works, and it has continued to work for months. And sometimes it won't work, but then it starts working again. So, like, it's like sometimes I'll put in the URL and I'll say something like, "That URL is bad. I can't use that," and then I'll open a new chat session and it'll work. So I'm not really so like these things don't work 100% of the time, but this one actually with this one with the URL seems to work a lot. Now, granted, I think the big question that I don't have a great answer for is when would somebody end it? How often would people paste a URL into their browser? I don't know. And how a URL that they don't from a website that they don't know or trust. I don't know. There could be some social engineering to get somebody to do it. Keystroke poisoning. I don't know.
Yeah. Or library website injection. A WordPress plugin that gets hijacked that can then inject new
right. So
text.
It might be a website that you trust. It might be a website that you trust, and that site has been hijacked. Yeah. Although, the
plugin functions the way you want it to, but it's looking at user agent string, and if it's coming from Bing or ChatGPT or whatever the user agent string is for the browse with Bing, it behaves differently. It injects stuff onto the page.
Right. Because it's right, exactly. So, now I can't personally see a time when I would be using this and be like, hey, I'm just going to paste the URL in here, or paste the URL in here that has data on it that I want and ask for the data. But I don't know, it's possible. I mean, maybe
you could do. I bet using this and or doing it through the API, I bet it'll make normalizing scraped data an easier process.
Yeah, possibly.
It's possibly. The thing that I'm thinking is I wonder if you could normalize data from it.
You mean like, oh, hey, visit Newegg and get all of the prices for me?
Sure.
Yeah, I
Give
mean, I got
me.
to tell you, as someone who's trying to program that kind of thing, it's very hard because you keep
Oh
getting
yeah, it is.
blocked.
Yeah, it is.
Um,
They
but
and they used to have. They used to have a SKU catalog that you
I mean,
you
that
could
I'm
actually do
not
that
just
with.
picking on
But
Newegg. I mean, there's just like all the majors,
yeah.
right? Like every time this time of year when we're talking about deals and sales, like I've
Hmm.
tried so many times to write good scrapers, and we could go off on that for hours. But anyway,
Yeah.
my point about this is I'm going to have an article about this up tomorrow on Tom's Hardware, so you can see more about how what the problem is. But I think the key message here is be very careful with putting important data in ChatGPT.
Yeah. Well, I think that's been generally been our takeaway with AI in general is
But this,
be
but this
careful
is
with the data you give
inviting
it.
you.
But in this one, yeah, in this one, there's this environment in which you can actually actively feed
Upload
information
files.
into it.
Right.
Yeah.
See, the thing is, for before this, how were you going to give it your data? You were going to be like, have to write it in, like, oh yes, my password is this. Like, you're not going to do
Right.
that.
Right.
But here, you're kind of being invited to, like, you might have like upload a giant zip file full of stuff, full of like code or something that
Mm-hmm.
has your API key because you were testing something that used an API.
Sure.
That's valuable data for someone to steal.
Yeah, it is. Really, really interesting. Uh, I'm gonna be spinning on this for quite some time because there's a lot of potential, certainly potential negatives, but I'm already thinking on some potential positives as well that I'm intrigued
Yeah.
by. Okay. Well, as always, Avram, I appreciate this. This was a really interesting one, and my brain is doing all kinds of weird stuff right now, thinking about some projects and how this might be useful. So I appreciate this, and as always, I look forward to what we talk about next time. This week's Extra Life on F5 Live Refreshing Technology is proudly powered by EXA. EXA brings the latest technology to gamers, offering the most immersive products for the ultimate gaming experience. They've compiled the best elements of cutting-edge ENC tech, the latest in Bluetooth 5.0 and 7.1 surround, plus extra features into their headsets so everyone can enjoy a sensational gaming experience. And they've got headsets for Xbox, PlayStation, Switch, and PC. Plus, they won't break the bank. Learn more about the headsets that are available and any current promotions by going to f5live.tv/exa. Well, Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3 came out this week. Obviously the 2023 version of that name. And it has suffered some interesting problems. Pre-launch in the early preview code, there were some issues, particularly people losing progress, not being able to sign in some cases not even being able to launch the game. When the game came out for real, players jumped into it. There are two types of players generally. There are those who start with the campaign and then do multiplayer, and there are some people who never touch the campaign and go straight to the multiplayer. No matter who you are, you may have encountered some interesting behavior, particularly with spawning. Let's take, for example, the map Quarry. Quarry existed in the previous game, which ran on the same engine, used a lot of the same assets, was mostly the same game. Quarry when played on hardpoint game mode, spawns players in the exact same location every time, which is not great. So you get shot, you die, you come back into the game in a physical place in the game. Most games will spread you out. Even in this game, most maps will spread you out. But this one, in particular, would always put you back at the same place. So all somebody from the other team had to do was stand there, wait for you to spawn again, hit you, and then sit and wait for you to spawn again. So it certainly makes the game not fun. But how does a bug like this happen? The map already existed in this engine. It's not like the map is new. It's not like the engine is new. The game is not exactly new. Sure, we've put a 3 on it, but it could have easily been called a DLC for Modern Warfare 2. That's not how Activision has done business. We'll see what it looks like under Microsoft's tutelage, but that's not how Activision's done business, especially with Call of Duty, so much so that the original founders left the company. But how does a bug like this happen? There's playtesters. I know there are. They have to have played on this mode. There was an early preview. So non-playtesters had played the game. Maybe this wasn't available. I didn't have the early access. I watched some of it, but I didn't have it. It seems like a strange bug to appear in something that already existed. Now, there's a lot of people talking about this online. There's a lot of consensus that Activision, when it comes to Call of Duty, has just become EA when it comes to Madden. That not a lot of care or concern is put into the game, and instead they are just wringing cash from a cash cow. Maybe that's what's happening here. I don't know, because the game Call of Duty does not seem like the game that it used to be. Not just because it's literally this game that it used to be. But I don't know. It seems like when we see these cash cows, these kinds of things happen, where the developers and or the publishers just look like they don't care anymore. It could be that the development cycle for a Call of Duty title has gone from a 3-year cycle to a 18-month cycle, so they don't have enough time to actually work things out. But this is something that was introduced. It's confusing to me, Avram.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, is it still making a lot of money?
The game, yes.
Yeah.
It is a cash cow. It is Activision's, legitimately, it is Activision's version of Madden. You don't have to change anything. With EA, with Madden, all EA has to do is put the new NFL character, the NFL players in, take the old ones out, and hit publish. $60.
Yeah.
Activision's the same way. They're using the same engine. All they have to do is create some new maps, maybe add some new assets, new types of guns, new whatever. But the engine already exists. We know that they didn't update the engine. All they did was add some assets and some maps, and somehow the old maps are behaving weirdly. They worked in the last one. They worked on Monday, and then they stopped working on Tuesday. Same engine, same map. Monday they were fine. Tuesday they weren't.
It happened. I mean, bugs happen, right?
Yeah.
Bugs absolutely happen. So, I mean, bugs happen. Obviously, they need to get their act in gear, right?
Mm-hmm. I think that's the thing, right? Like, we'll see what happens under Microsoft's tutelage, because Microsoft is not known for this. However, Bethesda is, and Bethesda's under Microsoft, though they operate differently than Activision's going to, I think. Because I think Bethesda came in and they're still like their own entity under Microsoft, but I think Activision. Phil Spencer showed up at BlizzCon. It seems like Microsoft isn't going to let Bethesda happen again. But with Bethesda, they're known for launching a game with people like clipping in walls. And nothing changed under Microsoft. But I think this purchase is going to be different. I have a feeling they're going to try harder. I don't know why I feel that way, but I do. I don't know, though. I hope so. I hope under Microsoft, these games go back to being the flagships that they were instead of the cash cows that they are. Right? Because it used to be you'd get excited about a Call of Duty game. People would go wait outside a GameStop for a midnight release. It's not quite that kind of excitement. Yeah, everybody, lots of people have it on launch day. Sure, you update your Warzone instance to the new game or whatever, but it's not like the cultural thing that it used to be. Maybe they can get back to it, or maybe at some point they've just wrung all the cash out of it they can. Or damage.
Yeah, maybe. I think. Yeah. I think the main thing is that it's got to work. If people are enjoying the IP, then it doesn't have. Then they don't have to make changes to the engine, but they can't break it.
Right. Breaking functioning stuff. Ask Blizzard, which is a subsidiary of Activision. Ask Blizzard how Overwatch 2 went. Breaking working stuff, but they actually did things, right? That was a major rewrite. This was not. I don't know. And So I used Quarry as an example. It's not the only one. The company has actually pulled, to the best of my knowledge, so far 3 maps from the game because of the same problem or related problems. There was one, I don't remember which map it was, but one of the maps under certain circumstances was spawning you on the wrong side of the map. So you'd spawn in enemy territory, which is almost as bad as spawning the same place over and over again. In one case it's Groundhog Day, and in one case it's just, direct sacrifice. Neither one's great. But it's certainly an interesting situation. I have not been a COD player in a long time. Mostly for this. For all the reasons that several of our former hosts stopped playing Madden. I stopped caring about Call of Duty a long time ago. And it does not seem to have gotten better. In fact, they seem to have proven that I was right to have moved on. So, I don't know. I think game studios in general need to get better. They're not cash cows. They are supposed to be, art and communication and fun, most importantly. And, when you can't actually play the game that you've purchased, the fun certainly goes away. So I'd like to see studios try harder than this. This week's news from the tubes on F5 Live Refreshing Technology is proudly powered by Malwarebytes. Whether you use a PC, a Mac, or a mobile device, Malwarebytes Premium is the company's strongest protection ever. It fights threats that traditional antivirus software can't stop, plus it actively blocks threats like worms, rogues, dialers, trojans, spyware, and a whole lot more. It allows you to use your computer and mobile devices with confidence and peace of mind. To learn more and to get a special price, you can go to f5live.tv/malwarebytes. Well, an internet inevitability happened this week in that Omegle, the anonymous video chatting service shut down. Now, why was it an inevitability? For all the reasons that I said that Snapchat was a problem right from its launch, Omegle was a problem right from its launch. So if you've never used it or don't know anything about it, essentially you could go to the site without creating an account, without giving a name. All you had to do was maybe put in some interests and hit go. Your webcam comes on, it matches you up with a stranger. All you see is you and stranger. There's chat on the side, video on the other. You and the stranger stacked. Go. You can hit a button and go to the next person. End the chat and go to somebody else. But there's no names. And because it's live video, it's very difficult to monitor. And when you have anonymity and a difficulty in monitoring and moderating, you end up with problems. The most obvious being there's video and anonymity, and so nudity was often involved. And because there's no sign-up process, anybody can use it. So obviously you can see the direction that that's going to go. You're going to get matched up with people who are too young to be using the service, but because you don't have to give any information, are they? The service became really popular with teenagers and preteens. So having any sort of nudity on the platform, clearly a problem. And then the platform is used literally for grooming. It went the other direction. And lots of terrible things came out of that. Obviously, lawsuits were filed. One lawsuit in particular claimed that the company matched up an 11-year-old with a registered sexual predator. And the company settled that suit, and as part of the settlement comes the shutdown. Now, that was not disclosed during the seemingly abrupt shutdown this week, where the original founder posted and said, sometimes you I think it was sometimes you win and sometimes you learn, or something like that. I would imagine there was a lot of learning that came out of this, because the shutdown was part of the settlement of that lawsuit. So the site is gone, which is generally a good thing. There are other similar platforms. I don't know if Chat Roulette is still around, but in the wake of the shutdown, other services have started up overnight to fill the gap. And without the resources of a company the size that Omegle grew to, the chances of having any moderation, because Omegle tried. They tried over the years to try and add, some sort of content-aware services. It never worked, but they tried. If you're just like some guy, like the original founder, just putting up a thing and seeing what happens, you don't have the resources to do that, so it's just going to start over again.
Okay, so I don't understand how this managed to last for 14 years.
I know. How was this not
honestly,
sued out of existence almost immediately?
I don't know how. I didn't know about this, but it sounds like a terrible idea. Like, if somebody asked me whether they should create a website like this, I would immediately tell them no. I mean, because everything that you've described is the inevitable consequence of this.
Of course.
And I mean, there's no way that this is good. Like, no way. I mean, this made me think of something which is fairly minor in the scheme of things. But I worked at about.com for many years, and when I first started there, for the first few years, it was before COPA, before the COPA Act, the COPA law came into place.
That ages you pretty good.
Yeah. Oh man. Yes. but I was young then. I was young enough to be into Cope. No, I'm just kidding. I was still adult. Anyway, yeah. Well, let's not do the math there. But anyway, so the Cope. So when I started there, and for those who don't know, COPE was the Child Online Protection Act, which imposed a lot of new, well, not new at the time, responsibilities on uh, web services and websites. So one thing that we had when I started there is so the way that about.com worked, and about.com no longer exists, but existed for many years, was that we had a whole lot of mini sites, hundreds of them, right? And they'd be on different topics of interest. And there'd be one person who was called a guide who was in charge of each mini site. So we'd have, a mini site about, about knitting, and we'd have another one about learning French, and we'd have another one about vacationing in Spain, and we'd have another one about learning HTML, we had ones in different religions, and we even had one that was just called Chat, and it was actually on the tech channel, which was my responsibility, and Chat was supposed to be literally about like all the different places that you could go chat online. But anyway, all of our mini sites, whether they were the chat site or not, had a chat room. They all had chat rooms. There was a little link in the top nav that said chat, and you click and you get transported to the chat room. And the chat room was basically like a Java or JavaScript like chat room. There was the room was open 24/7, and any fool could go in there. Yeah. And after COPA passed, they're like, oh, we can't have these chat rooms anymore, right? Because we weren't moderating them. It was just occasionally the guides who ran the sites would be like, hey, I'm having a chat at 3 p.m. Come over here. Come, let's talk. But like, generally speaking, I think they were open 24/7, or maybe you could, if you were the guide, you could close it or whatever. But like, they were generally open, so you could just go in there and chat. Now, to be fair, very few people ever did just go in there and chat, but the resource was there, right? Now you have this, which is like 1,000 times worse than that, because here you have something where it's deliberately trying to get you to chat with a stranger.
Yeah.
It's deliberately, it's doing the opposite of what every parent tells their kids. Like my son is 11 now, right? And we are very protective of what he does online. Like, he can, we don't care as much what game, I guess we care about what games he plays, but like, we don't want him interacting with strangers, period.
Right.
Like, I don't care who it is. We don't want him interacting with strangers. So if he's going to chat with somebody on Minecraft or whatever, like, it's got to be someone that we know in real life, right?
Sure.
So like, we do not allow him to chat with strangers, and we do not allow him to play games that would make him chat with strangers. Like Fortnite, I think, is really, you're like, oh yeah, you're supposed to play with all these strangers, and most of his friends play Fortnite, and I'm opposed to that, because I don't want him talking to strangers.
Right.
So one can only imagine a situation whose only goal is to make you chat with strangers. It's not like you're incidentally having to chat with strangers because you're teaming up with him in Fortnite. Now your goal is to chat with a stranger. Even as an adult, I don't want that. I don't think that's safe. By the way, I don't think that the anonymity is as anonymous as one might think, because now, like, if you weren't showing your face, I guess maybe, but if you show your face, it's fairly easy to use facial recognition to find someone.
Yeah, to identify you.
Right? to identify you. So,
Yeah.
I wouldn't necessarily say it's a. I mean, I guess if you disguise your face in some way, then maybe not. But
So I'll tell
um,
you, the key to it was to use uh, OBS virtual webcam and have preset clips. There was a whole thing to it
preset clips of what? I understand. Why
of
would you do
somebody
that?
else,
What was it? Oh, if somebody. Oh, so you were going to so that you could do horrible things and not get like
so that
just
you could record the other person. You do a
this
you
is
do a screen
horrible.
record and you use OBS. You get a couple of kids at a sleepover to do what you want, so that the person on cam will do what they ask, and you've got all the stuff in pre-recorded clips of somebody else. That was the game. That was how
Yeah,
it worked.
this is horrifying.
Yes,
Um,
indeed.
this is horrifying.
And
They
Omegle,
should be shut down.
while probably the modern most well-known version of this, chat roulette was around before Omegle, or at least was popular before Omegle.
Who
And
who
and
has so,
I am sitting here on a Bing search of articles, 20 best Omegle alternatives to random chat with strangers.
why would you do that? Who wants that? Why do you want that?
I don't know. Now, so there are a couple of interesting things that came out of it. On the legitimate side, there's one guy who I was following on YouTube who would show up in a chat, and off camera he would sketch the other person and then show them the sketch. That's kind of cool, right? There's a couple of magicians that would do magic tricks for the other person and then get them to follow them on YouTube or Instagram or whatever. Interesting marketing technique. But overall, just like I said, that the theoretical time bombing on Snapchat was inevitably going to lead to problems, and it did. This was obviously the only direction this could have ever gone, was this way.
Yeah. I'm just surprised it took this long. I mean, you know where this would work is if it was run out of some kind of lawless country, right? If it
Sure.
was run out of a country that is beyond, the enforcement of U.S. laws or any child protection laws or anything
Yeah.
like that,
Or
right?
any
Then,
forms of decency.
right, so theoretically, obviously there's lots of sites and whatever that kind of exist outside of,
Sure.
general international law, and someone could run such a site, if there's no legal constraint on you, I guess. But why would you even want to run a site like that? What's the point? Did they
I
make a lot of money off of this? Was this a good money maker? It just seems like a
I think
waste of
so.
time.
I think it was. But, so I asked the question with Snapchat right up front. I've long been questioning, and I know I mentioned it at the beginning of the show, and I'll tell you, I don't know how to sign into it. Into our own corporate one, I don't know how to use it. I I know we have one. Michelle made one for CES a number of years ago, and I think she's the only one that can sign into it because I don't understand it. Because the only reason I can imagine that you would want disappearing photos is for nefarious reasons, right? It's for
Yeah,
inappropriate reasons. And the only reason
yeah.
I can imagine that you want anonymous video chatting is for nefarious reasons. I don't I don't know why else this would exist. They
Right.
didn't create the Pirate Bay because they wanted to make it easier to legally distribute games and music. Right? That's not why the Pirate Bay exists. It's why the torrent concept exists, but it's not why the Pirate Bay exists. Right? So this isn't the reason why video chatting exists, because here we are using video chatting and streaming technology to do a technology show, right? It's not the reason the technology exists, but it's the reason this version exists. It's the only thing that makes sense to me.
Yep.
Bless you. To whoever was behind you. No, but there was a sneeze in my ear.
Wow, that mic is really good because that's like 25 feet away through a closed door.
Well, yeah, things happen. Sometimes you can hear the dog bark here. It happens. These are good mics. Thanks, Skipper.
Anyway,
yeah, there's no way. I don't know what the point was. The Snapchat founder tried to explain it one time, and I didn't buy it. The explanation didn't make sense. I've never heard an explanation for this thing. It seems just as weird and creepy as that trend where people would randomly text their phone number neighbor. Nope.
This all sounds terrible. There's a lot of people who have too much time on their hands.
Indeed. And speaking of too much time on your hands, Omegle grew in popularity in 2020. In particular, because people had too much time on their hands. And that's when things went really sideways.
I could see that because it was very isolated. It could be very isolating, right?
Mm-hmm.
But
I think people were treating the concept as a digital bar or club, right? It was a place where you could interact with people you don't know. The interactions don't necessarily have to have a lasting impact on your life. You could go in, talk to somebody, hey, I don't like you, hit a button and move on. It's like turning around at the club and just moving on, right? And I think people were trying to treat it that way, but then it gained traction, and then the bad stuff got worse. Omegle has always had the bad stuff, but it got worse when the platform got more popular, because if you look at the statistics, the group who felt most isolated was under 16. And they ended up finding this weird solace in Omegle, and then the bad stuff got worse. So, this lawsuit was filed in 2021. It was settled, I think, just a couple of weeks ago. And now the site is gone, but it doesn't mean the problem is gone because, like I said, I literally have pages of Bing results here with more alternatives that are probably going to be less regulated than Omegle was because they don't have the resources that a 14-year-old company who is actually, having success in the market is going to have. So I think I can speak for both of us when I say, don't do it. Nothing good comes of this. Skip it. Do something else. Find Facebook groups or whatever. Yeah, people in common, go talk to them. Don't find Discord servers, whatever. Don't just randomly connect with strangers. It's unsafe and a little creepy. This week's DRM Not Included on F5 Live Refreshing Technology is proudly powered by Amazon Prime. We all know that you get free shipping on millions of products with Amazon Prime, but you get a whole lot more. Like free music with Amazon Prime Music, free TV, movies, and documentaries with Amazon Prime Video, free games, and a free Twitch subscription to support the content creator of your choice with Amazon Prime Gaming, plus a whole lot more. We've got links to all of these features and some of our favorites, plus a 30-day free trial, all by going to f5live.tv/prime. So we talked a couple of weeks ago that the writer's strike was over and that it may not matter because they could write all they want, but if nobody can act, It was all for naught? Well, the SAG-AFTRA actors strike is now over as well. A tentative agreement has been reached. There is some process that will come out of that. The committee will go through all of the details and decide whether or not the tentative agreement will be approved by them and then sent to the general members of the union to have an overall vote. As of right now, the details are scarce for good reason. They don't want to release, the hardline details on what the contract says until everything has been approved internally. Totally get it. I don't disagree with that decision. What we do know is that with the end of the strike comes the resuming of productions. David Harbour, I think, said today that Stranger Things production for the final season will resume imminently, which is exciting. Because we just saw, Stranger Things Day just happened, and we know things like the name of the first episode of the final season and what the first scene's going to look like. But filming has been a problem because of the strike. So TV, movies will be able to get back to production, which will be good. Mostly because it means the actors are going to be able to get back to work. And I know when we think of actors, we think of, the big names, and they're not necessarily affected by 119 days or whatever of not working. It's the people at the bottom of the union that struggle and really get hurt by this kind of thing. The people who had to join the union because they've been in a couple of commercials, or they played one of the background characters in one of the new episodes of Upload or something. So they had to join the union, and then they can't work because the union's all shut down. So it'll be good for them to get back to work. Then the people that aren't part of the union that were forced to shut down, the camera and lights and sound and makeup and all these other people who have been out of work by no choice of their own. So that'll be good. Plus it means content's coming back. So that'll be good as well. I don't know, Avram. There are a couple of details about this agreement that I'm looking forward to finally getting the full details on. The AI stuff in particular.
So I've been following this, and well, you're right, they haven't released it. Justine Bateman, who has been kind of the loudest voice against the AI, allowing AI performers, has been tweeting that she's very disappointed in the agreement, and maybe people should vote for it because it is going to allow AI performers to replace regular performers.
Okay.
So she didn't tweet the exact details or whatever, but so it's not clear what things they caved on in terms of AI. Did they cave on allowing people to be scanned without their permission, or did they just cave on allowing AI performers to be used? To be used, and some people want them to not use AI to replace humans at all. But she's on Twitter saying that like this is going to be like the death of the entertainment industry.
Sure.
That it's she said so she says, though SAG leadership made much effort to protect members in AI, there are many issues you should look at. I have saved the most serious issue for the end. In a range, so what does she say? Okay. In a range of ages to suit the character, you'll also be in competition with an infinite number of AI objects that the studios can freely use. And a whole cast of AI objects instead of human actors eliminates the need for a set or any crew at all.
Interesting.
Uh, yeah. Uh, so it sounds like they're allowing a lot of AI uses is a lot of AI uses that replace actors. So not great.
Yeah.
I guess we'll see. Uh, I guess we'll see how bad it is, but it doesn't sound good. I mean, maybe
Yeah.
obviously there's probably a lot of people who were in the SAG union who are like, hey, what we really care about is getting a good rate of pay right now, and we're not thinking about the future, although the future is really not the future but the present. Um, but maybe they don't, since they don't see widespread replacement of actors with digital twins, then they're not worried about it. But they're but I mean, that is a definite concern, right now.
So it's interesting. The phrase AI objects. I look forward to
Right.
finding out how that's being defined. Because,
Yeah.
uh, and a whole cast of AI objects instead of human actors eliminates the need for a set or any crew at all. So, I mean, she's describing animation.
Yeah. I think she's also talking about, like, I mean, yeah. So I mean, I think what she's describing is that basically humans can be replaced by a photorealistic animation, right?
Sure.
Right. Anything that could exist physically could be reproduced digitally. So I don't know.
But but
It
just because it's I mean, Thanos was digital. Anybody could have been
Yeah,
anybody or
yeah.
anything
Well,
mocapped could have
he
been
was a
behind that.
digital. He was a mocap though, right? They actually mocapped. Did they actually
Yeah.
mocap
Yes.
the actor? So
Yeah.
and just like with Gollum, uh, so
The greatest actors of all time. Sorry, continue.
yeah, Andy
I
Serkis. But I
I
like him better when he's himself.
I used Gollum juice today because I've got a sore throat. If you're, I mean, regular
Yeah.
listeners will recognize my voice sounds wrong. I used Gollum juice today to be able to do the show.
What's Gollum juice?
It's a particular mix that he uses to protect his voice,
Oh,
and he
uh,
started doing it when he was doing Gollum because it absolutely thrashed his voice box because it's the
oh,
weirdest voice
really?
ever. So yeah, it's
Uh,
it's essentially a hot tea with lemon and honey and ginger, but in particular proportions, and it works for him. So I did it so I could do the show tonight.
uh, anyway, um, yeah. So I don't know. I think playing Claw was his greatest role, though. Anyway, but yeah, I mean, I think there's real, um, going to be real issues for real performers.
Uh huh.
But I guess we'll see where that leads.
Yeah,
But
and
yeah, I mean, so
that's why I want to be able to read the contract once it's
yeah,
made available.
yeah,
I want to see what the actual details are. You know, getting interpretations are fine, but they're vague interpretations in this case because she's not allowed to talk about it. I've seen people who are on the pro side of it. I've seen people who are on the con side of it who have read through it. There's certainly a lot of doom and gloom, but there's also some people who are like, I've read the thing. It doesn't really say what you're saying. So I want it in my hand. I would like to be able to see what the agreement is, to be able to see or at least have actual details. If I can't have the actual contract in my hand, I'd love to be able to see what the actual details look like instead of interpretations. There's certainly a lot of doom and gloom, but new technology does that in all industries. The software industry has been doom and gloom over AI, and as I keep reminding people, for AI to be able to replace software engineers, the client has to know what they want. So that'll never be a problem. There was a lot of potential for harm here, for sure. Especially over time. Actors being able to, digitize and mocap, create, digital dupes of themselves, and then essentially license them in perpetuity. Yeah, there's certainly a lot of potential harm here. I'm currently holding judgment until I see what the final details are. But yeah, certainly there was a lot of cause for concern here. So, we will know at some point. Obviously, like I said, I think the members now have the full text. If I understand correctly, the committee has already voted yes, and then to send it to the full membership, which is where we are now, which is why Justine Bateman is able to comment on the full text, because she's read it, and people are commenting on her tweet saying, how about we wait for people to read the full thing? And she's like, I have. That's why I'm talking. We'll see how the vote goes. This would not be the first time that one of the unions had a tentative agreement and production shut back down. From what I understand, because the tentative agreement was not voted positively on by the membership. But we will see with probably in fairly short order how the membership decides to go on this. Well, that is our show. Thank you to those of you who joined us live. We always appreciate our live viewers. If you didn't join us live and would like to in the future, Sunday nights at 9 p.m. Eastern, you can go to f5live.tv/join us. You can follow us on social as well to find out when we go live. There you can chat with us in the studio. Give us your feedback on the topics as we talk about them. We'd love to hear what you have to say about the topics. If you're not able to join us live, that is okay as well. We're everywhere you want to find us. You can go to PLUGHITZlive.com/subscribe. There you'll see all of our shows, and of course all the ways to watch, listen, and follow along. I will tell you that Unboxed and How To both have a ton of new content coming. It is out of frame, but there is an absolute mess on the floor right here because of all of the products that we have opened and done how-tos and unboxings on just over the last week. So lots of new content coming there, so you can check that out as well. And I think with that, on behalf of the staff that's not here, I'm Scott.
I'm Avram.
And we will see you back next time. Ciao.